Mm. Amazing. I hope everyone's day's going well and everyone has had some breakfast. They're gonna have some lunch soon. Um, and we're all happy and excited to be here and to learn from the best about interviewing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to the Inside Scoop. This is the second part of the series with a focus on interviewing from the perspective of recruiters. And we also have Lauren here from the Career Center to give us that perspective here as well. Karen, if you could get us started and introduce yourself and your role with Enterprise.
Thank you so much. My name is Karen Gerstenacker. I'm a talent acquisition manager with Enterprise Mobility. Most people might know us for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, but Enterprise Mobility is the parent company of Enterprise National and Alamo Rent-A-Car, as well as 6 other business lines. And I've been with the company for 10 years now. I just had my 10-year anniversary in July. I started off in our entry role, and we only promote from within. So thankfully, I've been able to get promoted from within and been in talent acquisition for about 4 years. We're the largest rental car company in the world. We want to be the largest mobility company in the world, providing mobility solutions to customers and clients any way we can. And we hire for our entry-level management trainee position as well as internship. It is sales, customer service, field marketing, and account management.
Thank you, Karen. And then Lauren, if I could have you introduce yourself and sort of the perspective you'll be offering today.
Great, thanks, Liz. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Opgenorth. I'm the Associate Director of Internship Engagement here at the Career Center. In my role, since I meet with both students and employers and get that unique perspective around the recruitment process and mentorship and what students can do to really prepare for that, I'm going to be offering some of our best practices as well as some of the different resources that could be helpful. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much. So with that, we'll get started with our first question. So Karen, and this goes to both of you, but what can students do to prepare for interviews? But I also wanted to kind of ask a little bit of a follow-up to that, and how can students prepare for specifically your organization?
Sure. So I think, well, to start off in general, to prepare for an interview, I would say to visit the website of the company, and look at their, their mission statement, their core values, kind of what their goals are as a company, and what do they represent? Does it align with what you're looking for? Does it align with your, goals and values? And just learn a little bit about the company, take some notes. And then I think being able to then tell the recruiter that, like when someone tells me like, oh, Enterprise was founded in 1957 with only 7 cars in St. Louis. I'm like, wow, you prepared. So I think that's, it goes a long way, and it only takes 15 minutes. And to review all communication from the recruiter for us. So to prepare for our interview, we use behavioral based questions, and we include kind of a help sheet on the STAR method, right? So that's the best way to answer behavioral based questions. And we do that because for us, your past behavior is a really good indicator of your future behavior, right? And the STAR method really helps kind of paint the picture, right? Beginning, middle, end, pretty much. So we send a help sheet with that. For us, we tell you exactly what we're going to be talking about. We go over our 6 core competencies and how you've been successful in those competencies. So we do give a lot of information. You don't just go in blind. And a lot of recruiters will do that as well, even in other, in other industries, whether it be sales or going into tech or whatnot, accounting. Like when we hire accountants, like we tell them exactly what the competencies are and what we're looking for. Just reading over any material from a recruiter, but again, just going to a website, no matter what company or industry, and just doing some quick research and being able to to kind of discuss it with the recruiter. And it also helps like bring questions like at the end of your interview. Say like, oh, I saw here on your website that, this, and this. Can you tell me, how that resonates with you or what direction the company's going in or whatnot?
Yeah,
Lauren, go ahead.
sure. I was just going to follow up on what Karen said, and she gave you a great way to get started because that's so that you can be able to really identify why it is you want their specific role. But also, students, think about how do your skill sets and your experience match that position? what can you do to think about, the past work that you've done and that relevancy, and thinking what makes you stand out. So you know your resume best. So as you're going through and reading that mission, that vision, their values, think about where you've been able to work through that within your own experiences, whether it's in past internships and or student organizations or otherwise. You've got that. Also, there's a lot of planning that's going on and what you need to do before, but give yourself a good night's rest. There's nothing worse than feeling like you get up for the interview the next day and you feel exhausted and you're just yawning, and we want to make sure that you can show that you did your research. You also gave yourself that chance to rest. We want to make sure that your well-being is of the utmost importance, so then you can, do your best when the interview matters ultimately. So don't forget that. Sometimes it gets overlooked, and I like to mention that.
Yeah. I think you both kind of touched on this already, right? The importance of researching the company when you are preparing for interviewing, but more specifically, what have students brought up in your interviews that made them stand out?
Again, I would say, or when they do the research and they can tell me about the company, but also if you went on my LinkedIn, I've had students or candidates say like, "Oh, I see you started off as a management trainee. Tell me about your journey. You've been here for 10 years. Why have you stayed with the company for this long?" So if you can mention that again, that little extra research. Again, it shows me that you're taking this interview seriously, you're taking this position seriously. And for us, training, developing, retention, all of that is super important. So we want to bring on someone who is passionate about being here and again aligns with our core values. And again, you want to be here. We want you to want us just as much as we want you.
Yeah. And it should be more of that natural dialogue, right? It shouldn't just be just that the almost like word vomit of everything, but kind of carefully thinking about how you want to present the information, how you've been sharing that. I know Karen mentioned, looking at the information on LinkedIn. For any of these companies that you're applying to, follow them, see where they've had any activity. Have there been new products? Has there been anything in the news most recently, with what they've been doing? Just so that you can be that much more informed, not only about the organization, but even the overall industry, about what's been going on, some of those different trends. That'll show that this is something that you are thinking about more in the long term and not just for a one semester or, beyond that. So definitely think about what you can do with that. I've also seen where students have tried to connect with alums who work at the organization to learn a little bit more about the company culture. What have been some of the ways that they've been able to make the most of their experience, whether it be, professional development wise or mentorship, or just kind of ways that make their organization stand out, that you can kind of share, that you didn't just do kind of the bare minimum research, but you really took a real deep dive because you want to be a part of this organization and ultimately be one of their teammates.
Yeah, I love this. And I think I'm thinking about like all the research that they're doing and into people and all, but we always recommend to students to think of possible interview questions, right? So you're kind of prepared for that. So do you all have some advice as to how students can think about these questions or think of possible questions for the interview?
I would say again, doing the research, but try to, I don't know, this might be a little bit hard, but like try not to ask such like maybe generic questions. Like I can't tell you how many times, like, what do you look for in a candidate? Like, well, I kind of already just went over that. Like I went over the question. I was like, the questions that I asked you, that's what I look for, right? If I'm asking you about your customer service, if I'm asking you about your experience with sales or persuasion, if I'm asking you about your leadership, and then that's obviously, what we're looking for. So then after the interview, when you ask, okay, what do you look for? Like, well, we just went over it. So you can ask maybe some more detailed or maybe pointed again, like I saw in your LinkedIn, you were a management trainee, you were an assistant manager, a branch manager. Which one did you like the most and why? Or what would you say, your most proudest moment is? Or even as a company, like what are you something excited about the company? Or is there something coming up, that would, would put the company, catapult it to a different level? Anything like that, or Again, just kind of maybe more unique questions. And if I could add, like maybe what not to ask. My mentor, she was the one that told me this, my regional vice president, she's like, never at the end of an interview ask, how did I do? Because she was like, it's either going to be two things. They're going to be honest with you. And if you didn't do good, they're just going to tell you like, no, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. That's a really awkward way to end an interview. Or they're going to lie to you and be like, yeah, it was great. And then you don't get the job, right? And then you're like, well, I thought I did great. So, and to her point, she's like, well, the interview's over. You already did it. You can't go back and change your answers. You can't go back and change the last 30 minutes. So instead of asking, how did I do? Ask maybe something again about them, about the company, or for internal promotions. You can always ask, like, what's something that the last manager did really well that you would like for that to continue? Or what's something maybe that the last manager maybe needed help with, or there was room for growth or opportunity there, and how would you like the new manager to tackle that on? So much more, again, pointed and direct, not so general.
Absolutely. And I would say if it's anything that can be found on their website, do not ask it. We've had students that have said, can you talk about your benefits? Can you talk about, and it's like, you can get that elsewhere. Let's kind of focus on this individual that you're meeting with, ask them about, whether it's accomplishments that they've had at the organization, or maybe even be a little bit more nostalgic and say, what did you do when you were in college? And can you talk about maybe some of your experiences that had helped to get you to this point? Because again, remember, you're coming in from being that college student and trying to navigate, should I be doing more actual internship experiences, or should I be doing more informational interviews and coffee chats? Can I join a professional association? Like, what are some of the things that you can do while you're still in school to help prepare for this? I also think, about that whole like growth mindset, and what are maybe some of those development of strategies that you've tried to use to overcome, maybe you don't have as much public speaking, and what are maybe some of the ways that you can try to improve that? And it's been fun to see how people have given different suggestions of things like Toastmasters or otherwise, and it's really amazing the type of feedback and insight you can get. And if you can kind of show that you are the type of person that are trying to continue to better yourself and learn from others, and really seeking these opportunities is not just being very insightful, but potentially getting kind of a little bit deeper layer of some of your own professionalism, certainly take complete advantage of that. So hopefully that can offer a little bit more insight too.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're still thinking about like how to prepare for the interview, but one of the most common questions I get from students is it okay to reach out to current employees to prepare for the interview? So I wanted to get your perspectives on that. If should students be reaching out to current employees? Is it okay? Does it leave a bad impression, a good impression? Does it not impact them, right? So if I could get either of your perspectives on that.
I would say you definitely can, as long as you know them. Like if they're part of maybe your network, they were maybe if you see that they were an alumni, they went to your school. I would say to have some sort of similarity, something in common with them. Because if it's just a random person reaching out, like for me, of course, it's my job to discuss, right, our hiring opportunities, our career path. But for say a manager, a hiring manager, it's not their job to do that, right? They're in charge of the operation, and they're in charge of, sales and development and revenue, all that kind of stuff. So I would say if you have some sort of connection with them, it's like a friend of a friend, or anything like that, but you went to the same school, maybe you worked at the same place in high school, or something like that, you're part of the same organization or fraternity or sorority. I think you have to have some sort of something in common, or else you might not stand out to that person at all. They have no incentive to to reply or to help you. So I think it is fine to a recruiter 100%, but maybe someone at the company finds some similarities that you have with them.
I would completely agree with Karen. I know sometimes we'll even get the question where they'll say, can I reach out to them before my interview? Why? Just, wait for the interview, focus in on maybe the other components, those other people or other connections, but otherwise, just wait for that individual. But certainly agree with what Karen had mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate that like connection piece of it, right? I think sometimes like I think students are getting at maybe reaching out to a stranger from the company, right? But I think I agree with you both on making sure there's some type of connection there already established. But pivoting a little bit more now to during the interview, thinking about like first impressions, right? Students often ask about how they should be dressing for the interview. So what should students wear to the interview? Is there such a thing as being overdressed or underdressed?
I think, well, first impressions still matter. I think like they 100% do. I think it depends on the industry. I can only speak on our industry, right? And we recommend business professional for the interview. Now, that's not the dress code for the job, right? It's business casual. But for the interview, you always want to, for us, I say dress to impress, right? If you have a suit, wear your full suit. Again, because it's a very again, it's sales, but it's very structured, it's very kind of corporate. So if you're going to go to an interview, especially in person, well, even virtual, right? Because it can still, see you from the shoulders up. So if you want to wear, your sweatpants, that's fine. But from here up, it needs to be professional. I've done interviews with, you're wearing t-shirts and baseball hat and a hoodie and again that kind of shows also your preparation, right? Going back to preparation, that shows how serious you're taking this and how much you care about this interview and care about the position. So virtually, of course, I think business professional, and then when you go in person, I think 100% business professional, because it's better to be overdressed than underdressed, I think, especially for an interview. You want to be, because no one's gonna say like, well, they didn't, they came dressed in a suit. Like they're gonna be like, they came dressed in like jeans and a t-shirt. And that's a negative connotation. If you're overdressed and you feel a little silly, then it is what it is, but at least it's not in a negative light. So you always wanna be, I would say, overdressed.
Absolutely. First impressions matter. And so you want to be able to know that within those first 10 seconds, as someone's kind of evaluating who is this person, what's going on, that you would rather them say, you look great. I'm glad you're dressed up in the suit or business casual, business formal, but when you get the job, we dress casual, or it's okay then to wear, let them dictate what that dress is going to be. But just as Karen said, dress to impress. You want to make sure that it's, and especially, like in the Zoom setting, it's not just what you're wearing, but it's what's in the background, what's going on there. How are you maintaining your eye contact? All those different things are things you are going to want to consider. I know it seems like there's a lot of different moving pieces, but ultimately, they are seeing whether or not you're going to be fitting within the organizational culture, and they want to make sure there is that minimum. So just making sure that you are putting your best foot forward. I know sometimes it can be uncomfortable, and not necessarily what you're wearing to and from class, but I think also it's kind of like I see or I hear from students too and see it. Sometimes they will dress up for presentations, for tests, just because they feel that much more prepared. They feel like they're going into it with that much more of a professional sense or tone. So if you can, just making sure you look as polished and ready to go, just based on your attire and what you're wearing.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you both. Yeah, first impressions are really important. Even if the organization is, let's say, more casual, even if that's the case, in the interview, right, you're meeting them for the first time, right? You still want to show up in your best dressed, best first impression. And then after you've been hired and understand the culture of the organization, that's when you can then dress with something a little bit more casual if that's the culture of the company. So appreciate you both for that insight. And then thinking again to during the interview and possible questions. So the most common question students get, or everybody gets really, right, is the question, tell me about yourself, right? What do you hope to learn from the tell me about yourself question?
Yeah, I think that's ties in like perfectly with an elevator pitch, right? And it should be about 30 seconds, right? 30 seconds to a minute or so. So tell me about yourself. I want to know kind of what, where you went to school, what your past experience has been, like your work experience, and then kind of presently what you're doing now, and then what you hope to do in the future. Like, what are your long-term career goals? I want to know that your long-term career goals align with our company. So if you're telling me, I want to be in a fast-paced environment, I want to work, with accounts and with people. I love being with people. I want to work in sales, and I'm very results driven. Then I'm like, great, yeah, that's exactly what we look for. But if you're saying, I want to work remote, I want to work at a desk, and I want to work 9 to 5, then that doesn't align with us. So it's good to know that at the very beginning, because I'm very, very honest with candidates and very transparent about about what we have to offer, what our work-life balance is like, and what's the expectation. So it's good to know kind of where you've worked, right? And again, your past experiences, your past behavior is a good indicator of your future. So I want to know where you've worked, where you went to school, maybe what clubs or organizations you were a part of, and then again, what are you doing now, where are you working now, if you're graduating now, when do you graduate, what currently are you involved in, and then again, what are your future goals? Short term is fine, like the next year, next 2 years, kind of where do you hope to be?
Absolutely, yes. I think that for a lot of students, you all have had it in common that you've done that personal statement in getting you to USC. So, why did you come to USC? Why did you choose that major? Because again, the major is going to align hopefully with those career goals and what you hope to do after USC. So it's thinking more of, okay, how much in that 30, 60-second pitch do you want to share about that past versus what you have been doing? Whether it's through some of the coursework, your extracurriculars, internship experience, and how that's then ultimately prepared you for this internship, showing that you have the qualifications and not just meeting them, maybe exceeding them because of your leadership involvement. And again, keep drawing back to how it connects to the organization. I think a lot of times we hear some of the feedback that we get from employers is, oh, well, the students were prepared and they talk about themselves, but they didn't necessarily make the connection to the position. So here's where you are, here's where the organization is, and how do you draw those two together, showcasing how then maybe it's your values that align, how you are looking to work towards that common goal. There's a lot of interest there because I think if they can see you as that dynamic team player who's definitely aligning with everything that they are looking for in candidates, it's going to give them no other reason than to then give you that offer, right? So that's something that we're certainly seeing. And the idea is the tell me about yourself is what you're going to kind of, lead with, but also it's kind of hoping that every answer then, throughout the process is kind of drawing back to some of those key points that you made initially. And then of course, throughout the interview.
Yeah, thank you both for the insight into like how to answer that question. Now, getting into a different question that I get often from students is the question about weaknesses, right? Or something you're still working on. I think it kind of makes some people nervous, right? When you're asked, what's your biggest weakness or what are you working on? So what are you hoping to, or like, what are you hoping to learn from somebody when you ask that question? And how should a student answer that question when you ask?
I think it's definitely okay to be honest on your weakness, but what I want to know is what you're doing to improve that weakness. I want to know what plans or kind of what goals or steps do you have in place to be better. Like for us internally, like a customer, if you don't have a good customer service score each month, or if it falls down, falls low, you can't get promoted. But once it comes back up, usually a hiring manager always be like, well, I see in March, your customer service score was 79. What happened? And so I always tell our employees and candidates to be honest, right, with any kind of maybe not failure, but where you kind of fell short. But then this is how I improved that score. This is what I did. This is how I got that 79 to a 90. And we want to know what plans you have set in place, what you've done, and maybe even if you haven't, succeeded in that yet, you still feel like it's a weakness. You can kind of tell me, what this is what I've started doing. Maybe if time management or procrastination is something like, well, I started, I started going to office hours. I started seeing my professor instead of, going out every Friday night. I've stayed in and I've started studying. And, instead of going to, Monday Night Football, I did this instead. So I want to know what you've done to improve it, or what you're doing right now. And again, even if you haven't improved that one weakness, I want to know kind of what you've been doing currently and kind of where you stand with improving that weakness.
Absolutely. I completely agree with what Karen had mentioned, and would certainly just think of it as lifelong learning. There's always different things that you can work on. I mentioned that growth mindset before. And if you think, nope, there's nothing else to learn, I've completed the college degree and that's it, like you're going to be constantly learning on the job and the internship and all these different opportunities. And so whether it's a new technology that, maybe you can do a LinkedIn learning class, maybe there's something on Coursera, maybe there's something even within these, within the different organizations, they have resources that help to better prepare their staff on all these different topics. And so sometimes it's just a matter of acknowledging, you know what, I might need to get a few strategies of how I can improve with this, or I've been noticing in customer service, time management, even, communication, whatever it may be, as long as you're willing to be honest with yourself and acknowledge that there's something that I can be working on, there's something to be learned, and it's just something that you will continue to evolve, and it'll change within positions, within industries, and certainly just being willing to adapt to these new different situations, I think would certainly be in the best interest of really all individuals.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate you both for kind of giving that insight into, how to answer that question. Because it's okay. We're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. We're all kind of working on our skills, and recruiters know that you are all students, right? You're just learning these skill sets. So it's okay to be working on them, but have a plan for how you're working on them, right? So before we pivot to kind of our last set of questions about after the interview, if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we can ask them after we finished our set of questions. So I encourage you to do so while we have, Karen and Lauren here today. Okay, so now pivoting to after the interview. So students have heard different advice on thank you notes. Some of them have heard that you should send it. Some of them have heard that it doesn't matter if you send it. So I want to hear from you both today. Should students still be sending thank you notes after an interview?
I think as a courtesy, it's a nice thing. It still kind of goes a long way. Like we just hired a new employee in the kind of downtown LA area, and she dropped off a handwritten thank you note. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, what?
When was the last
So
time that happened?
I have no idea. I can't even tell you. And again,
Yeah.
four years that
Wow.
I've done this, I don't think any applicant has ever done that. And it was before she got the offer. I think, right, maybe, he decided to hire her, our hiring manager, because of that thank you note. It goes a long way. And I will say, like, it's just a nice thing to do. It doesn't need to be long at all. You could just say, thank you so much for your time today. I enjoyed learning about the position. I would love to continue with the company. Maybe you can reiterate, why you're interested. And then thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from you. And that's it. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be a cover letter. It's just I think it's just a courteous thing. And will it, totally affect like it did, for Miss Ksenia, maybe, but maybe not. It could be where that it doesn't matter. It could be also like if the interview was really bad and you send a thank you note, like you're still not going to get hired. But if you did have a good interview, and maybe they're thinking about it, and you sent a thank you note, and you followed up, maybe that is what pushed the recruiting team and the hiring manager to hire you. Because again, that shows that you care. It shows that you took the time, that you care about this position, and you enjoyed speaking with us. So I would definitely say this email. It doesn't have to be hand delivered. It could be an email with just a few sentences saying thank you.
Mhm. I would say absolutely. I think it speaks a lot to your character and just, your appreciation of the individual's time. I think that sometimes when you're interviewing, you don't realize that in addition to those interviews, you still have your job and your meetings and kind of everything else going on. So the interviews do kind of, especially if you're not a recruiter full time, like the interview process is very time sensitive. And so when a candidate has acknowledged that they are grateful for the opportunity, there was information shared, I think it just goes a long way. I think it also has the opportunity to showcase, what is it that you are eager to share? Like, I really appreciated learning a little bit more about this particular project, or maybe something that they would be doing in the internship role. If there's something that you can tie back to the actual interview itself, and that it's not just so generic, I think can really go a long way. You also have to think about it from the recruiter perspective. Like, let's say they have two candidates and experience is kind of neck and neck, and on paper and everything, you think that they're kind of right there. But if one sent if one sent the thank you note and the other one didn't, you're probably going to go with the person who sent in the thank you note. And you don't want to, go through all those steps and feel like you missed out on it. So it's a really nice gesture. I think it just makes students stand out, because not everyone is going to do them. I do acknowledge that. But if you talk to anyone from the Career Center, we're going to certainly encourage you to follow up with that. And that's something that actually employers have said what sets USC students apart. So let's keep that trend going and be so gracious for those opportunities.
Absolutely. And I just want to echo everything that was said. Sometimes, you do really have two really strong candidates, and maybe only one of them sent a really thoughtful thank you note, and that's what sets you apart. So you just want to make sure you are presenting your best self for these opportunities. And moving on to our last question before Q&A, do you have any final advice that you think would be helpful for students to ace their interviews?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's in my mind like simple, but just doing again just a little bit of research. Show up to the interview on time, even a little early. Test your technology. Yesterday I had a candidate put me on hold for 7 minutes because he needed to figure out his technology and the microphone and the camera isn't turning on. And again, we have 30 minutes and that were allotted. So now you just took away 7 minutes from yourself, right? Not for me. I would say I'm paid to do this. You're not. So we want to make sure that you have all 30 minutes to discuss your success and how you'd be a good fit for the company. So test your technology the night before, the day before, 30 minutes before. And look at the recruiter's LinkedIn. For resumes, I suggest one page, right? One page, and kind of clean, depending on obviously your industry. But it should be in chronological order, clean. You want it to be easy to kind of read through. And yeah, so just again, be early. First impressions still matter. Dress to impress, and yeah, have your questions ready.
Absolutely. I would say, in addition to what Karen has said, of course, just be yourself, be authentic. I think a lot of times there's this perception that you're going on stage or it's going to be this, theatrical moment. At the end of the day, you have to be representing yourself, because once you start the internship or the job, you're going to have to make sure that you maintain that level of professionalism, that strong work ethic, dedication, all those different things. And so try to kind of keep that in the back of your mind too. Yes, there could be a lot of things kind of going through your head and trying to make sure you're saying the right thing, presenting yourself in the best of light, but ultimately we do want to make sure there is that. I would also say just making sure you are very thoughtful in the types of questions that you are going to ask the recruiter. So making sure that you've taken the chance of, are there things that you want to know about the organization? Are there things that you want to know about the next steps with the recruiting process? Try to have a few setup questions that you have there. And I usually will tell students, think about it. Think about the interview is more of this discussion back and forth rather than just a long monologue of the person who's, asking the questions, and then you give one or two answers. You want to be detailed in your responses. You want to be able to talk about, not just saying I'm a strong leader, but actually showing them through your experiences, talking about some of your communication, whether it's been in team projects or within your leadership roles, whatever it may be. Like really think about kind of that back and forth, and do you feel like it's been a good balance of that? Because just as much as they're interviewing you, you're also interviewing them. And so making sure that it is that two-way street. So
Yeah, thank you both. And I just want to add on to what they both said, which is remember that you are also, like Lauren said, interviewing them, right? You want to make sure that they're the right fit for you. You want to make sure that the energy that you both have is the right fit for both of you, right? I've definitely had students or others tell me like they interviewed, the vibe wasn't right, they started the job, and then they realized they weren't really a fit, right? So you are still looking for those things when you are interviewing for internships and for other roles. So I appreciate your feedback or your insight for both of these, from both of you, but we do have two more questions from the audience. So one of them is, do you have any advice on what to say when interviewers ask about future plans, or where you see yourself in like 5 to 10 years? So what are you all looking for when you ask these questions?
I would say to be very honest on what you want. Again, it's your career, it's your future. You want this company to be a best fit for you, almost like how Lauren said, like you're interviewing the company as well. You want to know kind of what they have to offer. So you should be very transparent and honest on what your long-term career goals are and what you have kind of coming up. And again, and it's also for your benefit, because then again, if you tell me you would like to be, I don't know, a dentist, whatever it may be, I'm going to say, okay, well, then this probably isn't the best fit for you because this is what we do. And then maybe you kind of learn about what we do and, you're like, oh, okay, well, no, I don't want to do that. And I have had applicants and candidates tell me in the interview, like, hey, you know what, after you just went over, the details, this isn't what I want to do. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for telling me, because I don't want to go through another, 25 minutes of an interview. And then at the very end, you tell me, actually, I don't want to do this, because you already know you don't want to do it. So you're probably not going to give like your all in the interview. And, we just want transparency. So it's very important to be honest. I promise you will never hurt a recruiter's feelings if you say, actually, I don't want to do this. Like we want the truth. I want to know that you do not want to do this, or you do want to do this. But again, so many people are involved with bringing on someone on board and, setting up interviews and getting approval from even my GM and my VP of rental. They're involved in approvals, and these people are my boss's boss, and they need to know who's coming on and when they're coming on and what branch they're going to and who their manager is going to be and how we're going to develop this employee. So a lot of people, there's a lot of kind of cooks in the kitchen when it comes to that. So I think the most important thing that you can do is be honest. I think for your sake too. It's not just for the recruiter. So I know, not that we're wasting time, but you shouldn't be interviewing for something that you're not passionate about, because you should do something that, that makes you happy, that you're passionate about, where you want your career to go. So definitely just be transparent. And that's something that we always appreciate.
you want me to take this on, Liz, too?
No, I think that Karen, you did a really great job. So I think covering everything. So thank you so much for that.
Sorry, thank you.
No, you did amazing. Sometimes I think when one person answers it, Lauren, I think you agree we can move to the next question, right? Okay, so in thinking about just another question from the audience, but do you, when you're interviewing students, have a preference for more of a professional tone or a more lively and fun personality? And I think that probably comes down to the type of positions maybe, or the fit for the company. But if you want to give your insight on that, Karen?
Yeah, I love to see a candidate's personality come through. There's nothing like when I'm interviewing someone who's like really professional, really dull, like I'm like, okay, when is this interview over? I think it's nice when, of course, you want to stay professional, right? You want to keep it professional. You don't want to like, cuss or slang or anything like that. But I think it's really nice when you're smiling and your personality comes out a little bit. And even when we share something in common, or like if you say, a sports, or, a musician or anything like that, or you're from Downey. I grew up in Downey, like things like that. I think they kind of stand out a little bit. Again, at least for our position, it is those very those people skills. So again, especially with sales, right? I always say no one's going to buy anything from you if they don't like you. So you have to have those people skills, and I evaluate that as well. So I want to know again that you're really good with customers, but also our accounts and our other business partners. And we're a large team, so I want to know that you can work well with others. So those interpersonal skills, I think it's really nice when they come out during an interview. And it's almost like like if you're a little funny and a little bit more likable and whatnot, and your personality shows. Again, keeping it professional, but I think that's nice. I would definitely encourage that again in my industry and the position that I recruit for. I would definitely encourage that.
Mhm. Yeah. For the sake of time, I'm going to move to the next question again. Sorry, Lauren. But when someone asked if for the question about tell me about yourself, should you be giving a summary similar to what's on your resume, or should it be something that's not on your resume? I think that's a good question to ask.
Lauren, do you want to answer this one?
Sure, I'll start with that one. So as far as the tell me about yourself, I mean, you have to think about it from the recruiter's perspective. They already have the cover letter and the resume. They already kind of have a basic snapshot. Why don't you try to kind of fast forward a little bit deeper to the questions of, well, why did you choose USC, or what else? What are some of the things that are not necessarily mentioned there? Just because it is the interview is that opportunity to be learning some additional information that's maybe not already stated, right? It's giving you this new platform to be able to discuss that. And that's where I think you have a great opportunity. Again, your interview is going to be limited to 15, 20, 30, however many minutes there are. It is very limited again. And so you want to be very intentional by the information that you are saying. So rather than regurgitating the information given, what can you do to add even more value and talk about why you'd be that ideal candidate, maybe in comparison to others?
Karen, do you have anything to add? If not, we can move to the next question.
No, honestly, like I said, being intentional on what you're saying, kind of what Lauren said, and again, your future. Again, we have the resume. I can see that where you worked before and where you went to school, but yeah, let's talk about kind of what your future plans are and where you hope to be.
Yeah, I love that. And then we really have a few questions left, but this is a common question I get from students too, which is when they've been invited to interview, is it okay for them to connect with recruiters? If so, how would they go about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I've heard recruiters say like they like on LinkedIn, if that's what it means by connecting, like some recruiters, if they see that a candidate that they're interviewing next week has asked to connect with them, they won't accept it. But I will. I personally will. Like that's fine. It doesn't, again, that information is public. And I can also look at your profile as well and kind of, make sure make sure it matches because sometimes your LinkedIn page won't match the resume, and I think that's a red flag. So kind of side note there, make sure it all matches. Because why wouldn't it? So then I'm like, I need to learn more here. So I will accept, if I see if the name looks familiar and I get a message like, hey, we have an interview next week. I would like to connect. I will, but I have some colleagues that say they won't connect with them, because what if they don't, send them to a second interview, they don't hire them. It might be a little awkward. But honestly, I think it's kind of subjective. Sorry, I don't have a concrete answer, but I think it's okay because then you can always reapply in the future. Maybe a year, maybe you've gained some more interview skills or you've gained, some more, work experience, and then you can apply in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we are coming up on time soon. So before we do, I want to sort of mention some things and give you some time to talk about your opportunities, Karen. So in the chat, I put a link to more interview information from our website. So I encourage you all to look at that. I also wanted to plug our upcoming events. I just put in the chat the mock interview night happening tomorrow. If you are interested in joining us, that will be with alums. We also have the Interviewing 101 with industry insiders, which Lauren can tell you about in a little bit. And the next part of this series, Inside Scoop networking tips from recruiters. So I encourage you all to join us for that too. And lastly, if you want to see recordings of anything, that I linked our YouTube channel there below. And then Lauren, do you want to kind of give some more insight into the insiders for those sessions?
Absolutely. So for the second year running now, we do have our industry insiders. There are 3 different seniors actually who are in 3 different majors and industry sections. And basically what they're doing is they are hosting different workshops to help walk students through this process of what application materials do you need to prepare for the industry, and then how do you network, and then how do you prepare in interviews. So similarly to the work that Liz is doing in getting the employer perspective, we're also allowing successful students to be able to share their experiences. So Amelie, who's working specifically in the analytical and STEM fields, will be hosting her Interviewing 101 workshop next week. And if you can't attend it, that will be recorded and will be posted through the Career Center's YouTube channel. But then the other 2 kind of industries that we will be focusing on starting next week and then deeper into October are going to be creative, health and sciences, as well as then service, focusing on nonprofit, government, as well as social justice. And so letting students know, regardless of what field you are planning on pursuing, we know that there's different timelines for each of these, and sometimes it's great to hear different perspectives, whether it's from students, staff, or employers. And so we wanted to kind of unveil all of these opportunities under the industry insider programming, which I put the link in. So hope to see you there.
Thank you, Lauren. And then Karen, I also wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the opportunities that you're hiring for. If you could give our students some more insight.
Of course, yeah. So in the chat, I'll put kind of a link if you'd like to stay connected and learn more about Enterprise. So that'll be the link to, it'll just ask for some quick information about you, and then that'll come directly to me and I'll send you some follow-up information. But we're hiring right now for so first our internship, our fall internship. It's kind of getting close to the deadline, but it's starting in October 21st. And ends in December, second or third week of December, it'll end. And we're looking for seniors, undergrad seniors graduating in December, because our internship, we want our interns to then come on full-time after they graduate. But it is kind of like a crash course of our full-time position. Kind of learn the same skills and core areas as the full-time position, just in a condensed time of 8 to 12 weeks. But you learn sales, again, sales, customer service, but also profits and losses, again, field marketing. You learn risk management and fleet management. It's a very big part of it. And the internship, there's also a project that has to get done and turned in at the end. And first, second, and third place have a chance to win scholarships, and you compete against all the interns in Southern California. And again, the goal is to then make an offer and have the intern come on full time if they perform well and we're a good fit for them. If the stars align, our goal is to have you come on board full time. And of course, we're always recruiting and searching for talent for our full-time management trainee role, which again is our entry-level role with a career path. And again, everything that I mentioned for the internship is what you do. And the program is about 9 to 12 months. Our goal is to have our employees eligible for their first promotion at 12 months. So yeah, those are the 2 that I'm recruiting for.
Thank you, Karen. And then if our students wanted to reach you, would that be that same link, or is there another place they should reach you?
Yes, let me go to, I will put my LinkedIn on the career or on the chat as well. But yeah, if you click the first link, again, that'll kind of send me your information, and I'll send you a follow-up email. And then my LinkedIn I just sent, and I will accept.
Thank you so much, Karen. And I copy and pasted those links for everyone in the chat. So feel free to click those, connect with Karen, connect with, you can always ask myself or Lauren questions. We are both advisors within the Career Center. So it was amazing talking with you today, Karen. Your insights are very valuable. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. So I hope that you all can connect with Karen later. So thank you all and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Karen. I hope you
Bye.